Sunday at Mike's. We've made it through another weekend, getting ready to get into another week. And what a great time to get together and get ourselves ready for that, like a Sunday night. I thank you so much for taking the time to join in. As usual, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this on the rerun, I want to let you know I do appreciate very much you taking your time to do so. Time is a very valuable thing, and for you to spend a little bit of yours with me is greatly, greatly appreciated. Hope everybody out there is doing well. Let me make my adjustments here. Yeah, I was just in time with that one. I always have to remember to mute my sound over here, or I will absolutely forget. Well, while we wait for more people to show up in the live stream, like Mr. Ben Allmark, hey, how you doing, sir? Welcome. Not a lot of people here tonight starting out, Ben. It'll warm up. I'm sure it will. As usual, like I said, while I wait for more people to show up in the live stream, I will talk about things that have been going on around Upstairs to Write Music. Um, I told you last week that I got a new puppy, and I can report that she's doing quite well. She's actually very well trained. Uh, a weekend at this point, she's got her commands down pretty good, and she doesn't make a mess in the house too often, so that's always good. But my goodness gracious, it's such a tiring thing. And you have to keep your eye on a puppy all the time. I left in my garden and she got one of my melons. She thought it was a ball. So she just decided to pull it off the vine. But it's okay, kind of just say, well, it's the price you pay for not being diligent. But she is doing quite fine. Mr. Watson in the house, how you doing? Mr. Frederick Rogers in the house, how you doing? Hey, I'm glad you guys are showing up. Like I said, it's a little slow getting started here tonight. I put out a video on my regular content called the Dive into Asian Made Guitars of the 70s, 80s, and 2000s. It is doing quite well for a video on my channel. So I want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to watch that. Great appreciated. Always leave your comments down in the comment section of all my videos. I will reply just about each and every one of them in some shape, form, or fashion. And I do appreciate hearing from you. Just same thing with this live stream tonight. Don't forget to hit the like button. Takes about 2 seconds. I appreciate that. And don't forget to leave your comments down below. I do appreciate that very much, guys. Thank you, everybody, as usual, for showing up. Yeah, one of my secondary light is not charged right now. I thought I charged it, but apparently I did not. So it's a little dim tonight. That's the reason why. Actually, it looks okay. I got my I got three lights. Two will have to tonight. Well, I guess you'd count this one above my shoulder here, but that's really just my desk lamp. Yeah, this looks pretty good. I think we can get started here. Um, yeah, so I did that dive into Asian made guitars. Maddie Two Hats, I think, is that who we just came in? Hey, how you doing? Maddie in the house. How you doing, sir? Yes, indeed, it is party time now that you're here. Hey, um, I am going to kind of get into a little bit more of that actually here tonight in a couple of ways. Tonight, the Double Secret Guitar Unboxing Preview. If you know that reference, Double Secret from the movie that's from, put it in the comment section. But the stuff from Japan came, and it came in great, no neck breaks, no missing pieces, broken or missing pieces, otherwise disastrous things, all in good shape. And I want to share them with you tonight. I want to, just as a little bit of a preview, show you the recent gear that came in and talk about it a little bit, because I think that when, you can read about things and you can talk about them and discuss them in groups like we do, but if you have some real examples, if you can really reach back and say, hey, this was this and then this became this, it makes it a lot more real and tangible in a lot of ways. And I really think also it points you in the right direction, I think, of what you really should be looking for when you're out there purchasing gear. And these days, money is tight, and it's going to get tight. So I really think that using your insights into things, and you get insights into things by listening to people who have good insights. Hopefully, you think that the amount of people that are starting to join this community is starting to show that to be true, and I appreciate it. I don't take it lightly at all. I do appreciate each and every one of you. But tonight I want to tie some stuff together for you. I'll show some stuff off, and I also want to dig into a little bit of history as well. All right. Tall Thin Kev, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm glad you showed up. I was really hoping that you would shoot me an email. Let's finish up that deal about that pedal. Let's figure out how we can do things there. So please, I was looking through my emails. I have a system where when things get a little old, they delete, or if not, my box would just blow up. So I couldn't find our thread. So send me another one, and let's wrap that up. Thank you, sir. Let's talk about some stuff tonight. We're going to dive into a little bit of Japanese guitar history again tonight. We're going to do it with actual, artifacts. It's like a tour at the British Museum. We're going to dig through some stuff tonight, and we're going to talk about their history and how one led to the other, actually, tonight. That would be the title, the alternate title, how this led to this. And we have some great examples here tonight. Greco guitars were copying some of the most iconic guitars of the time out of Fender and Gibson in the 1970s. But interesting enough, they went from producing Greco guitars to creating iconic Squier and Fender instruments in the early 80s. So tonight, whether you're a vintage enthusiast, a player, or just curious about the history of these legendary guitars, let's discuss. Let's get into it. So I told you guys the story of how I was in high school. And this is the only guitar, man, that I honestly, seriously jonesed for. It was my friend Steve DeMont. He was an excellent guitar player. Excellent. Even by high school, he could read charts like, I read, essays. And he just really had a great musical head. And he had Black Beauty Custom. I'm not sure, 76, 78, I'm sorry, 76 or 77, I can't quite remember. But anyway, he had one, and it was the only guitar that of all my friends, it was the only one that I never, was jealous or anything like that, but I was the mindset that, boy, I wish I could get one of those, and even then I didn't realize. I knew it was a sweet looking guitar, but now knowing what I know, it was a lot better than I thought. Well, in 1976, Greco decided to come out with their own version of the Black Beauty. And this is the Black Beauty Custom from 1976. You can see that it has the Gibson custom headstock, and the truss rod cover is 2 screws, not 3, like you would find in most Asian guitars. True mother of pearl inlay, ebony fretboard, gold hardware on it. And as you can see, again, for a guitar from the hardware has obviously started to break down a little bit, and it's gold. But other than that, especially you can see, especially in the tuners. But for 1976, this is in excellent condition, just looking absolutely great, looking fantastic. So I always wanted one of these, I always wanted a Les Paul Custom, especially the Black Beauty. And this is a good example of one. And I will say to you guys that this is not light. This is getting into Harley Benton territory. No, this is what it is. This is a true. The Japanese really, when they copied stuff. So in 1976, they got their hands on a Gibson, and they weighed it, they measured it, and again, also you can see there you got the true bridge, VR bridge going into the wood, not into post. They copied every aspect of that guitar, the woods that they use, mahogany body, neck, ebony fretboard, and copied it to it, including the weight. Because as you know, and I've held quite a few 70s Les Pauls now of different types, and I can tell you honestly that they're all pretty heavy, and this is no different. So that'd be funny. That's funny stuff. I mean, they absolutely copied it down to the weight. Ben Allmark says, very cool. Tall, thin care. Think I should mention missed out on a Whetstone by £2 on eBay. Yeah. Those auctions and things, that's why I stopped doing them, because you can miss out on things just by a little bit, and or somebody's, what is it called, spoofing you, and that's a shame to hear that. Michael Watson says, love that. Thank you, Michael. Matty Two Heads. Hot guitar. Love me a Black Beauty. Yeah, I do too. And literally, other than it's saying Greco and not Gibson, that is the only fundamental difference between this and a 76. Of course, I do believe those have the 70s, mid-70s, 76, 77, 78. Gibson would have Bill Lawrence pickups in it. I do believe, don't quote me on that. But these do have this one does have the top of the line, what is that, 2000 something pickups in it? Not 2000, but anyway, something like that. Great sounding pickups. Sounds like a custom. And just really a testament to the construction, the craftsmanship, just a dedication to recreating things, and they did it to a T. All right, so where are you going with this, Mike? Other than breaking your arm putting this guitar on its stand. Holy crap, that's a heavy guitar. That's a heavy. When they talk about heavy Les Pauls, that's what they're talking about. And that neck. I'm glad that we got here, because you know the information on the net regarding these is for some reason dicey. I don't understand why. It does have a thick neck, does it have a thin neck? What kind of neck has it? It's got 58. It's got a baseball neck on it. It's got a 58 neck on it. Well, I call it baseball bat. It is a true 58 neck on it. Now, that'll turn a lot of people off. That'll turn some people on. I actually, again, I'm of the nature that I like a bigger neck guitar. Maybe it's because I play so much acoustic guitar and it's just a comfortable thing for me. But my acoustic's got a pretty thick neck on it. But in any case, yeah, so I'll throw that bit of information out there to confirm that 76 Grecos, at least this one, this is the EG600, had some also say that they're rosewood fingerboards. That is not a rosewood fingerboard. That is absolutely ebony, without any. I mean, I have older 70s Grecos that have rosewood fingerboards, and they don't look like that. And yeah, I've shown them to you guys as well. You've seen them. That's an ebony fretboard. So don't let anybody, the 76 600 didn't have an ebony fretboard on it. So yeah, they completely copied it all the way down to the T on it. And I want to get into that a little bit. We're going to cover the rise of Japanese craftsmanship, how guitars played a pivotal role, and what led to the collaboration between Fender and Japanese manufacturers to start producing Squier and Fender branded instruments. And Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I'll be answering them as we go along, of course. And don't forget to subscribe, guys, as well. I'm trying to get 5,000 subscribers on this channel. If you haven't joined this great community I have here, it's growing all the time. Please do hit the subscription button and join in with us. Now let's start with Greco, a name that might be familiar to vintage collectors, but still, even in this day, it's not really commonly known out there as much as you would think. You really have to dig into, and that's why some of the information about these guitars is still, even in 2024, on the internet is very, very dicey, very dicey. Now, just a little bit of history. There was a company called Kanda Shokai. I've talked about them numerous times before. They actually got started in 1960. And by 1970, that's when Greco became really predominant in their replicas of American-made guitars, like Gibson and Fender. So during the 1970s, especially getting into the second half of the 1970s, because prior to that, they were doing bolt-on necks. As you can see, this is a set neck. Also, by the way, they copied the volute. So you have that volute there as well that you would find on a custom. But prior to 1976, the majority of the guitars that were being produced by Kanda Shokai was bolt necks, and then in 76 they started doing this. And these guitars, however, were affordable. They offered an incredible craftsmanship, and this was something that would suddenly catch the eye of major manufacturers in the States. You have to understand that, again, CBS had bought out in '65 Fender, and then you had the Norland Corporation that bought out Gibson, and they shifted factories, fired a lot of the older workers, and the quality and the craftsmanship, while these new folks got figured out, started going hard south. And a lot of Navy guys, that's how a lot of these guitars got over, is Navy guys coming out of Japan, coming out of Yokosuka and places like that. They go out into Tokyo, the musicians among them, they buy these guitars, bring them back to San Diego, and then from there they distribute on the West Coast, and then some of them would eventually also make it to the East Coast. This is all the 1970s. So that's a little bit of background to keep in mind. Hey, Tall Thin Kev, you take care. Thank you for showing up for a minute. Appreciate it, sir. I'll look for that email. Now, it was the quality craftsmanship at affordable prices that really got the eye of a lot of these servicemen. They were like, holy crap, that thing looks just like a friggin', Gibson custom, plays like one, feels like one, it's built like exactly like one. I'm gonna grab that and take that back, and the word of that in Cat West Coast started playing them and saying, holy crap, these are great guitars. And the word spread. The booming Japanese economy increased for demand for guitars within Japan in itself. This was a time when you were beginning of the bubble period for Japan, the very beginning. I was there, I arrived at the very end of the bubble period, and there were still whiffs of that, where I would sit down at the piano and somebody request would be around Ichiman yen, about 100, a little less than $100 at that time, about $90. And I would do that all, 5, 6, 7 nights a week sometimes, And the money was pretty flush. In the beginning of the bubble, the point of all this is that the money was really kicking in. Demand was really, really, really there. And so these copy guitars started being produced. With a heavily, just an eye on the influence of American guitar producers, really looking at what Fender and Gibson were doing. And absolutely copying them, even, again, I said, down to their weights. down to their weights. This is a true 70s custom. This thing is not light. Now, many of you have probably heard of the so-called lawsuit guitars. The period in the late 1970s refers to Japanese companies, including Greco, making replicas so close to the originals that American manufacturers started to take legal action. And as I pointed out to you before, there is no such thing as a lawsuit guitar because there was no lawsuit. There was a cease and desist order that came about in late 1977. But by that point, it actually was towards the Ibanez. They didn't even go after Greco's, which you would think that with this headstock, be the first cats they want to call up, ring up on the phone and say, hey, but no, they went after Ibanez. And it was a cease and desist order, and by late 1978, Ibanez had already, late 1977, early 1978, Ibanez had already started to change their headstock design, so it was a moot point. But what's interesting is that these so-called lawsuit guitars were often seen as better than the originals, especially due to the level of attention to detail. The reason I'm glad I have this 76 here with you is that you yourself can see the attention to detail as I go through this, and you can understand. One thing that I'll point is the binding work. Even on modern Epiphones, and I'm not putting them in the same group, so this is not an insult towards Epiphones, but sometimes it happens. And the Gibsons, you get issues. You can tell here where it's good binding work and where it's not. And this is fantastic binding work, just like Gibson. That small attention to detail, to exactly how the binding on a 76 or 75 custom they were basing this on. Again, just really a high level attention to detail. So all of this was brewing out there. You got these service guys bringing instruments back, plus musicians who are going over to Japan and playing gigs, bringing this stuff back too. And it's starting to get to the ear of Gibson and through the Norland Corporation, yes, with Fender. Now, CBS was a TV company. But they were interested at that time to branch out and to do not just television production, but they wanted to get into a lot of different things. And when they purchased Fender, they weren't guitar makers. That wasn't their thing. And boy, some of the things that they did sure did prove that to be true. They eventually got bought out. But during that time, they just were not happening. And these musicians that were bringing these things over, these servicemen that were bringing these things over, and this word of mouth, eventually, of course, like I said, started to get to their ears because they were facing major problems. Their guitars were becoming expensive to manufacture in the United States, and quality control issues were affecting the reputations of these companies. And meanwhile, Japanese-made replicas were flooding the market through the venues, the ways that I said. And just absolutely kind of taking what little bit of money that they had in terms of a margin away from them. Rising production costs in the United States in the 1970s, declining quality control, including during the CBS ownership of Fender, and how these factors led to the exploration of offshore manufacturing. So here we have the first time where guys are thinking about offshoring things. American manufacturers, guitar manufacturers. Now again, they kind of went the legal route a little bit, but not really. They didn't want to, really put the kind of money into that thing at that time. Again, like I said, their margins were low. They were already getting beaten out by these guys, and to pour money into lawsuits seemed like a frivolous thing to them. The Fender executives were not guitar guys, but they were smart enough to be impressed by the quality of Greco guitars. And so they decided to partner with Japanese manufacturers to start producing official Fender guitars in Japan. The goal was to compete with the high quality replicas. If we can't beat them, let's join them and have them make stuff for us. And that way, you can have a Fender guitar or a Squier guitar, that was made in Japan. Well, Squier is a little bit different story. That's where Squier is the beginning of the story, actually. They got into Squier first, the JV Squier series, and then regular run of Squier guitars, basses, and then moved to the Fender line. Now, since we've got to that point, I can show you the next thing that came in. So this is a 1985 Squier bass with Fender there, by Fender. So it says there on the 1985 Fender jazz bass. Now this one was relicked by the previous owner, but actually, what I told you before, I was relicked, and I actually thought it was tastefully done. It actually is pretty cool. So that's okay. That's not actually going to affect the value of this bass because it was done pretty tastefully, I have to say. I have to clean it up and do a little bit of fit work on it that it needs in order to make it really great, but not a bad job. But anyway, other than that, the electronics, the frets, and that everything on this are actually these frets are actually like 9%. I don't think this guy really played this very much at all. But I thought the seller was selling it as an 83, 84. It actually, the serial number shows it to be actually early 85. Now this is just 2 years off when Fender and the Kanda Shokai company partnered up and started producing these instruments. And I can tell you, because you gotta know it, I plugged this bad boy in first because I love bass guitars. And the quality of this bass guitar would rival most Fenders of this basses produced today. And that is not an exaggeration. This is the snappiest, the pickups, the feel of the neck. Everything about this is you take this guitar, in front of 20,000 people. You can take this in the studio and record it and be happy with the results. And this is just an early Squier, a jazz bass. So you can understand that Fender, when they approached the Kanda Shokai company, made a pretty good move. As a matter of fact, they hit it out the park with these instruments. Again, for 1983, other than the relic job that the guy did, like I said, this thing is in absolutely immaculate condition, and you can see what an 83 Squier looked like. Big difference, the way that you can get a modern Squier jazz bass, and you can hold this one, and you can hold that, and I've held the Squier jazz bass. It's not the same instrument at all. You can feel the quality, and this is just in the Squier, guys. You can feel, so you can imagine, I had the equivalent, my bass for a long time, for recording, not half of the last album, and all the previous albums and commercial work that I did before was also in 1984, I'll say 84, 85, Fender jazz bass. So they were making these in parallel with each other. And I honestly, this reminds me of that bass so much. I like the Harley Benton jazz bass, don't get me wrong. You can buy that and be happy with that I've been using. But this one, it's like coming home. And again, that was the platform, the quality. Now, the early Japanese-made Squires and Fenders weren't just good; they were great. If you can find an early Japanese Fender or Squire like this, buy it. And again, you're not going to be spending the kind of money that you would on, it's not vintage, it's early 80s that doesn't make it vintage. As a matter of fact, it's another 85. So this is the year I graduated from high school, this bass. And I can say it's held another 85 guitar that I own that's held up a lot better than me. But yeah, really seriously, they weren't just great. Many musicians and collectors actually prefer the Japanese-made models to the US-made ones at that time. So there was an explosion in the early 80s of Japanese-made Fender products out there, I remember. And some of the first video work that I did as a young guy, 16, 17 years old, a lot of the cats had Fender Japan guitars and basses. Um, yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. I can pretty much say that's how at least that's how I recall it. Some, of course, may have been U.S. made ones, but I do recall seeing a lot of Japanese. I made a note of that because I said, "Wow, that's something." Attention to detail, consistency, and precision. The use of high-quality materials, even in the affordable models. This jazz bass is made of the same materials that you would find on a modern Fender jazz bass, American one. Everything is exactly the same, there's no difference. Skilled artisans who hone their craft on brands like Greco, transitioning smoothly to Fender and Squire production. Good to have a 76 Greco and an 85, because in that 9-year period, I mean, they were already hitting it park 9 years before they even got the Fender contract. They were able to produce guitars like this. And all that time, even prior to that, eventually when it came time to do this, it was a walk in the park for them, so much so that they could really, really pay attention to detail. And the cost of the materials was not high because it was taking advantage of the yen dollar trade at that time. The Fender Japan series launched in 1982, and it quickly developed a cult following. Still does. Cats out there, that's all they'll buy are the Japanese-made Fenders. Early models are now collector's items. I would say in 83, 84, 85-ish, if you can get in that range, you're doing great. You know, the Squires or the Fenders, whichever. Swoop them up. And again, like I said, if you know the right places to look, you can find them for so much less. And once you got one of these, you don't. If this was my permanent bass, trust me, I would not need another bass guitar. You know, I'm not in the business of keeping these instruments. As you know, I'm a dealer, a small private dealer. But however, the reality is that I would grab this in a minute. I'd be extremely happy with this, and I would use it for recording, absolutely, without any question. So if you can find these in good shape, good condition, original pickups, all that stuff, you'd be pretty happy. You really would be absolutely happy. By the mid-1980s, the success of Japanese Squires and Fenders was undeniable. These guitars not only saved Fender from declining sales, but also helped elevate the reputation of Japanese craftsmanship on the global stage. Yeah, this was the 80s was the time when, you know, if you had a Japanese guitar, you were okay. There was a lot of, anti-import, especially in the cars, with the Japanese cars that invaded the United States, I do believe the UK in the 1970s to some extent. But that didn't extend to the guitar market. But that was just the United States. By the 1980s, it had reached a global stage. And really, Japanese guitar manufacturing really shaped the global guitar market that we know of today. I touched on a few points there about how you know the Fender suits said to themselves, we could produce these over there for this amount as opposed to this amount here. And you can see in the end, it proved to be correct. And that started the export. I believe that that's where the real, hey, let's export our Fenders, our Gibsons out, to Epiphone, Japan. In a way, pretty close copies that we can get of Gibsons through the Epiphone line around the same period. And this, again, chasing the lowest bottom line on producing these guitars when that action went from Japan to Korea to China, where we know it today. And now there's a strong possibility the Chinese operations may move, my feelings, for my reasons, India. Maybe wrong, we'll see. But set a standard for affordable, high quality instruments for sure. It influenced other companies to shift production to Japan and then other parts of Asia. Eventually, production moved to other countries, but the legacy of these early Japanese instruments remain. Today, they are highly sought after by collectors and musicians. A lot of cats are looking for these late 70s, early 80s Japanese instruments, and for good reason. Because again, the quality, the attention to detail, the fact, again, like I said, that you put the Squier, this 85 Squier against a modern jazz bass, and you tell me. And that's including the pickups. You tell me. Eventually, the lasting influence of this era on today's affordable yet high quality guitar market, it shows. And the modern day Fender and Squier guitars really owe a lot to the groundwork laid in Japan. The Squier Classic Vibe line stands out in when I wrote this line in particular to me because it tried in its own way to be a throwback, the Chinese version of what these earlier Squiers like this bass, like this 85 bass were. Even try to even copy that amber tint. Now this has happened over time. This is not a paint job, but they got that classic vibe kind of thing, inspiration. I believe totally, absolutely from early 80s Squiers, Japanese made Squiers. So that influence still plays out in the market. And it ended up being one of their most successful lines, by the way. The Squier Classic Vibe line really, so I have a Squier Classic Vibe, like Esther. So that'll tell you, that it really hit a lot of people and it appealed to a lot of cats. It still in no way, shape, or form even comes close to the quality of the early Squiers that it was trying to mimic. But you know what? It's close enough. But as Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell once sang, ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Jake, how you doing? Hello, welcome to the live stream, man. Better late than never. I appreciate you showing up, sir. Just running it up here talking about these Japanese guitars. Now, we've covered a lot today, from Greco's rise in Japan to the creation of Squier in the iconic Fender Japan series. It's clear that this was a pivotal moment in guitar history. It was a pivotal moment in guitar history. Absolutely. These guitars were the impetus for what we know now, this modern market. So that little bit of history should really tell you a couple of things. Again, if you're using critical thinking, it should say to you, well, if these guitars were good enough where the Fender guys wanted to come over and have them make them, then why do I care if it says Fender or Squire Japan on the guitar when the quality, is better than the Fenders of that same period? Why would I want to spend $7,000 to $8,000 to buy a 76, 77 American-made Gibson Greg like Beauty when you can get one like this that was made in 76 by Greco, which is a one-for-one copy of that guitar, but the quality and the craftsmanship is better. Again, using critical thinking, and the cost is not $7,000. Not even, it's a tenth of that. Well, 12% of that. Okay, so there's that. So you really, 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 really should take this history in, apply critical thinking, and come to the conclusion that if you market to get a guitar, then maybe it may behoove you to take a little bit of time and start digging into some of the older stuff. Now, whether you're a collector, a player, or a fan of guitar history, this era had something for everyone. And economic factors, craftsmanship, and global demand all converged to create some of the best instruments in history. And you could have some of them for a song. If somebody told you, whether you play violin or not, that you could find a Stradivarius, for $9.99 down the street at a pop, you would probably, get down there real quick to snatch it up. The quality and craftsmanship of these are so good that, and the price on them is so low, so little, that it really would behoove you to think about what I've talked about tonight. And if not, if you're not in the market, at the very least, the historical significance of these two instruments sitting made by the same company. Both of these were made. One was made by Kanda Shokai in '76. The other one was made by the same company in '85. So again, a 9-year difference there, but again, it's the same company. These are the Squire on it by Fender. This one says Greco, but they were made by the same cat. So why do you care about what the headstock says? I'm just saying. Use a little critical thinking there. Get past that. Look at who were the craftsmen. How was it made? Quality is for the value. Quality and value. Always credit quality and value. Quality and value. It's my mantra when I'm buying these instruments, the quality and the value. So there's that, guys. Michael Watson, Mike, do you remember electric guitars? Yeah, of course. In the early 80s. I think they were made in Japan, but I'm not sure. Yeah, Electra was made in Japan. You can still find them. You can find electric guitars in some shops in Japan. Yes, sir. And then there were, of course, the Cort guitars. It was Electra's, Cort's. Cort was out of Korea at the time, I believe. Yeah. Those were the ones that we could afford. Amongst my musician friends, I told you, we wore out a lot of Cort guitars. But yeah, I remember that one. It is okay. So now I've got a Les Paul custom. I've wanted one. What's it like, Mike? Now that you got one, now that you played it, strummed it a little bit, got a feel for it, and it's legit because it's the same construction. So there's nothing there that's funky. Well, after high school. I told you I graduated in 1985, so it's 1984. I've been wanting one of these. That's some funny stuff. Finally got one. What do you think? Well, um, it's a heavy muffler. It's a true rock and roll machine. You can get some tones out of a custom that you can't get out of Les Paul standard. I'm going to say that without a fact. And they're heavier tones, if you know what I mean. However, it's too heavy. It's just too unwieldy. And you're gonna laugh. This is obviously an older, it's a vintage. It's not an inexpensive guitar in the sense of it's comparing it to that Epiphone P90. But I like the Epiphone still better. I just like those. I'm just starting to get into the P90s. Yeah, these are excellent. And don't get me wrong; these are the pickups on these they're worth value in themselves. If I were to take the pickups out of this and sell them separately from the body, I would make more. But I won't do that because as I told you before, I don't do that. I refuse to do that. Somebody kept this thing in one piece since I graduated from high school. I think at the very least it would behoove me to do the same. 40 years, this thing has been in one piece, so I will shall do the same. However, that being said, if I was younger, I'd dig it a lot more, but older and the weight, I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's a little weighty for me. The reason I like that 98 Epiphone Sung P90 is because it's a perfect weight for a Les Paul. 8 pounds, 2 ounces. You can't get any better. That's right in the sweet spot for me. I like the neck. It's not a 50. I don't mind this neck at all. Chunky in the neck. I wish it's what I call a treble neck between a 58 and a 59 on the Epiphone 56, interesting enough. Although you would think with the 56 it would have a similar neck to this one now. But in any case, I still like it over this one. That's funny stuff. Finally got one. 4 years later, I've got one in my hands, and I'm digging a much less expensive Epiphone. Go figure, guys, I tell you. However, don't get me wrong, it's an awesome guitar. It's a rock machine. This thing is, if you want to get that vintage rock sound, this is the guitar to own. Just a personal observation. I can't say anything other than that. There's not a scratch on this thing. Okay, again, I remind you, 1976. Anybody see a scratch there on the body? Sides, underside, any scratches on the back, neck, anywhere, any scratches? No, sir, there is not a scratch. This was a case queen. For, well over 4 decades. And that's pretty cool. It's a great example. So there's that history. These two guitars were produced by the same company in Japan. So something to think about, guys. If you're in a pawn shop and you come across an older Greco or a Squire, it says made in Squire, get out your smartphone, look it up, do a little digging, and then see if you can haggle it and walk away with probably your lifetime guitar. Like I said, without any question, this bass, if I was still recording and whatnot, I would take this bass over the Harley Benton. This is a far superior bass. I like that Harley Benton. Again, don't get me wrong. I used it for the second half of that last album, but this is a superior instrument in terms of tone. So there's a little bit. How are the pickups in the Greco? Again, like I said, the equivalent. They listened to. I do believe it was Bill Lawrence's in the customs of this time. Don't quote me on that. I may be wrong. They had anyway. In any case, they duplicated those. Even to everything. They took those pickups. They took it apart. How many winds what were the bobbins made out of? What were the materials? And absolutely duplicated it. It's a rock machine. It sounds like you know, it's a Randy Rhoads rock machine. He played a white custom. This has, you can get those tones. It's just something. Uh, it's great. No, I didn't say about how they sounded. I just kind of touched upon it there, Maddie. No, it sounds like a custom. It sounds like a Gibson custom. Maybe in the mids, a little richer. Maybe in the highs, not as crisp that I remember. But I'd have to really get another custom in here to do that, and I don't know. I'd have to go all the way down to Utrecht, down to Dirk Witt. They have one to compare. But maybe I might do that. Because anyway, I'd be very interested to see. But I do, to my memory and to my mind, and my years of lusting, playing them, plug them in and playing them all over the world and say, I can't afford this price tag. This one feels the same. I feel like a custom, a 70s custom. But again, like I said, that weight factor at my age is no bueno. Is no bueno, senor. Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening in on this and watching this early preview of these guitars. Film the unboxing of these guitars. Again, I honestly, in the unboxing video, I'll put a little note in it when I do release it this week that said that this Squier jazz bass was the 82, 83 was his first run, but no, it's an 85, close enough. But there's that. But for the purposes of tonight's discussion, it's just fine. It works just right. So that video will be coming out this week. So support this channel, of course, by watching that. Yeah, I really am digging bringing out these vintage guitars and discussing the history of them and getting rid of that the myths behind them. I told you, it's like the Chinese whisper. One guy at the backstage of a small venue somewhere started saying, well, do you know that these are this or that, or I heard this or I heard that, and eventually that becomes fact after decades. And I'd like to break through what is fact and what is fiction. I certainly discovered, like I said, that, they will tell you, I don't know if this is naughty or not, but again, they will tell you that these are rosewood fingerboards. These are not. This is true mother of pearl inlay, and that is ebony. Again, like I said, I've had 77, I've 78, Grecos in here. They're with the rosewood that they were using at that time, same time as this, and trust me, this is ebony. I mean, I can look at it and see it's ebony. So there's that. And that it's not real pearl. Of course it's real mother of pearl. Of course it is. Again, like I said, they duplicated everything down to a T. So yeah, so I will cover that in the unboxing a little bit more. That video that I did, that I just put out again, dive into Asian made guitars of the 70s. I used the other Greco, the EG 700 from 78 as an example in that video. But again, like I said, I've held enough of these guitars, I had enough where I've got a pretty good sense for what is about them and what's not. One thing I can say overall is true about them is they're all excellent. They're all excellent. And you really, really should, take a look at it. I'm drinking orange juice tonight, guys. No vodka. Just orange juice, because the weather's been going up and down here in Amsterdam. We had a week last week where it was just hot. Hot. Great vegetable garden. And then literally the next day it turned on a dime where it went down to 8C at night. Not good for my vegetable garden. And of course, that big turn from hot to cold, everybody's walking around. We got tourists as usual, of course. It's a tourist city. and not knowing how to dress, hacking up a lung, and there's no way in God's green earth I'm going to get sick this week because I got Vinendal coming up next Saturday. So I'm just plugging the orange juice as much as I can all day, all night. Especially I was out and about today, so yeah, hitting the orange juice, guys, here. Nothing else, just orange juice. How's the garden been this year, Mike? It's been lousy because we had the winter held on for a long time, so a lot of my spring stuff never really had a chance to take off. And now that it started warming up and they started taking off, we got cold setting in. It was bad across the country and weird growth. And a lot of my raspberry bushes, especially the golden raspberry, they should be producing fruit by this point, but they're not. So it was weird weather, guys. It was strange stuff. If you have a proper vegetable garden, and the pumpkins, they flowered, they put out a little gourd, and then they die off because it was just too much rain. That was the other problem. We had too much rain. So, you know, you can learn a lot about observations of the world and the earth and by having a garden because it'll tell you the truth. There's just some weird weather going on. It was very odd, you know, thing. And I have strawberries that are putting out flowers right now. I never had strawberries in September. Certainly in the middle of September. It's odd stuff. So there's that. To answer that question, I hope yours is doing well, Ben. All right. I am exhausted. I have a young puppy, and today was her 1 week anniversary. Her and my other dog, Hoshi, went to the big park and had a very long walk, and she's excellent. But I am tired. It's like, you know, I never had kids. I know this is nothing like this. You can't put your kids in a crate at night and say night night. You can't do that. But it's tiring. But I'm so happy, so pleased. This is a good kind of tired, actually. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for another great show, Mike. I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing that custom. Yeah, I look forward to showing you guys how it sounds. Anyway, I will say adios. Guys, again, thank you so much for watching this live stream all the way through to the end, whether you're watching this or if you're going to watch it in a rerun. I hope the sound has gotten better tonight. I've made some steps in order to improve the sound. We've been having a little bit of audio dips in the audio here. I hope this made a difference tonight. I'll check the rerun and see. I am conscious of it, so I hope that doesn't show up tonight, factor in tonight. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for showing up and sticking into the end. If you haven't subscribed to this channel and you like what you heard and saw, we got this stuff coming up all the time here. So why don't you go ahead and join the community, subscription button. Really would appreciate that. And to the next one, thank you guys so much. Everybody, Ben, Maddie Two Hats, Mr. Watson as always, Jake stepped in for a minute, Tall Thin Kev stepped in for a minute, Mr. Watson, all you guys, thank you so much for showing up and always supporting me. I show up every night because I know you guys will be here, and that's the truth. That really is. So thank you so much for me. I appreciate it. You guys take care. I'll see you next one. Bye-bye.